All right, founders, it is time for another pitch deck critique and review. And this time we've got Jiminy, and this is a therapy tech startup, pre-seed, and it raised $8 million. That's pretty darn good considering the average pre-seed raise is $1.4 million. That's astounding. And this deck or this startup deserves its flowers. One problem though, this deck drove me nuts. Spoiler alert, this is a terrible deck. And I'm not saying this about the startup. I'm pretty sure this startup is built by geniuses, and we are looking at a unicorn or the potential of a unicorn, one of the strongest potential unicorns I've looked at. But the deck does horrible justice. It doesn't do any justice whatsoever to the startup as I dig deeper. And we're going to show how this deck is struggling, but also give you insights as to how this deck actually raised that $8 million, because I've got some great theories for that. And I think that you're going to want to learn, because if you want to raise $8 million, you need to look at some of the factors that went into this startup for its success right now. Wishing them all the best, because it is a problem that definitely needs to be solved, because I've had experience on the front lines with this, needing therapy myself and knowing a whole bunch of other therapists and working with other startups. Let's look at this deck. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang. If we met before, welcome back. Thanks for dropping by. Use the chapter markers, as always, to skip right to the pitch deck critique and review. You are welcome. If you want your own pitch deck critiqued and reviewed, let me know by staying till the end of the video. I'm going to give you instructions on how to do that. Just got to follow a bit of a process. I'm a 7-time funded founder. If we have not met before, I've had 2 exits, and I always say that's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times to your benefit. Why? Because I use pitch deck videos like this YouTube channel, to try and help you avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes I've made, especially when raising early stage funding. Not to say you're not going to make mistakes, but I'm going to try to make your life a little bit easier. And that's why we go through this type of content, to help everybody learn together. I do this also at startups.com, where I'm the chief strategy officer, work with hundreds of founders every single month. If you haven't checked this out yet, go to the website and see all the free resources there. If you're part of startups.com, thank you so much for your support. Appreciate it. While everyone's here, do the YouTube thing. Like, comment, subscribe. Always appreciate the feedback. That's enough of that intro. Let's jump in to this pitch deck, Jiminy, which I think is Jiminy Cricket in terms of Pinocchio, but I'm not exactly sure. I couldn't figure that out, but I like the name. Right away, I'm going to tell you, I know this deck is headed into problems, because I see this tagline here: the first major therapy innovation in decades. Really? You're going to say that? That's such a hyperbolic statement. And I don't like that as an investor. Nobody likes that as an investor. But there's swagger. I'm going to give you that. But you want to eliminate hyperbolic statements and just explain this is what we do, or we want to democratize therapy for everybody, using AI. I don't care what it is, but avoid some of these swanky, buzzy, hypey statements right there. It just doesn't work for me. Jiminy Health, we were repeating this. So just say it's an app for therapy for mental health, whatever you want to do, but get rid of the hyperbolic statements, because immediately I get my hackles up. I start to experience my spidey senses. They start to tingle. I go, uh-oh, we're in for a treat. And you don't want to put yourself in that situation right out of the gate. Next, it is confirmed that my issues with this deck happen right away. First slide. Number 1, therapy hasn't improved in decades. I don't believe you. I don't think so. I believe therapy has dramatically increased in decades. Again, hyperbolic statements with no context and explaining, like, what about therapy hasn't increased or improved in decades? Because I know techniques, I know accessibility, I know lots of different things where they've learned. There's new science. My son is in psychology, and he's explaining to me a lot of the changes that are happening as of the last decade. So this statement, I don't believe it, and therefore I'm incredulous. And immediately, if I didn't know that this deck raised $8 million, I would have probably written it off right now. So do not make these types of statements. Just get right into the problem slide and explain the size, scope, and the severity of the problem and why, who has it, and just give me, the investor, some context, because an investor might disagree with you completely, and now you're starting off again even further in the hole with this pitch deck. Now we're repeating this headline: therapy has not improved in decades. Now at least we've got some context here, but you could have removed that previous slide and just had this headline expand with some of this information. Let's take a read. Response and remission rates in usual care for depression are low, with majority of patients not responding or remitting. Here we've got some data. I don't understand any of this stuff. So explain to me, break it down. The response and the remission rates have dramatically decreased in the past decades by X percent. Tell me how many people have experienced this problem. Findings suggest that these outcomes likely haven't improved over the years. So now you've made this hyperbolic statement saying, we are saying for a fact therapy has not improved in decades. And now you're getting a little loosey-goosey and a little gray here saying likely, suggest. These are problematic words. Just give me the science. Explain what's going on here in these statements. And then we've got this information at the bottom that I'm never going to read, but at least we got some citations happening. So you could have taken all of this and the previous slide and put in a one summary sentence up at the top. And again, right now, this is a total F deck for me. If I wasn't interested in the problem, and again, I didn't believe that there was social proof here, I wouldn't have continued. And that's why this deck is problematic. At the same time, this deck is starting to build something that I believe is saying that we've got a unicorn on our hands. Now we got another slide, and this is going to be a regular occurrence here where we got redundant slides, but at least this is a feasible headline that could be adapted. The previous generation of therapy companies innovated across telehealth and facilitating insurance. Jiminy's category shifting technology-led high outcome therapy model that eventually hundreds of millions of clients love and trust and will save money for payers while improving outcomes. Okay, we're headed in the right direction, but once again, it's the H word, hyperbolic. You don't want to do that. Hundreds of millions of people are going to love and trust. I'm just going to take that for granted. That's what you want to do. But at least I like the fact that we pointed out the problem and why it's occurring, that we're talking about telehealth, access telehealth, and it's not working in facilitating insurance. That's not working for the outcomes that we want. And Jiminy is category shifting. So this is part of the solution in terms of technology and high outcome therapy model. So tell me you have a different therapy model that is contrarian to what's out there. So technically you've got the problem and the solution in this statement right here. These are the seeds for each of them that could have been blown out. Now, if I look at the rest of the deck, I start to get this suspicion that these guys are geniuses. Here's how I know. So we got previous generation mental health companies. We're repeating this again. And then we've got innovating healthcare patient journey, Jiminy Health. It set me up for something. And I'm going to say, all right, what's next? And I get the feeling that that's what happened to other investors. They kind of rolled their eyes at the previous slides, but they started to see some logic of what's being presented. Now we jump to clinically integrated LLMs, enabling better, more cost-effective care models. This is a solution, right? Clinically integrated LLMs. Now, there's a problem here, is that I know there's a lot of competition trying to do these clinically integrated LLMs, but at least we're getting to the new technology today. This is AI. And I like the fact that we just didn't say it's an AI powered. It's a clinically integrated LLM. I actually like that. Treatment as usual, TAU, clinician time, SAGE. I have no idea what that is. What's SAGE? Jiminy initial care model. So there's less time going on here, but it doesn't seem like a substantial improvement. SAGE enable clinical time, many hours. No idea what that means. And to enable the future, this is where we want to get to. I guess we're saying Jiminy, we have this. SAGE enable clinical time. Is SAGE the therapist? Initial goal, demonstrate value of SAGE. Is that the product? I thought it was Jiminy. To enable long-term goal, using SAGE significantly reduce. All right. We got vision here. We're getting there. And I like the fact that we're at least able to see what the hypothesis is here, that we're going to eliminate the treatment time and SAGE clinical time, many hours. I don't know what that means. We're getting somewhere, but this slide is so nonsensical, except for the fact that we got a headline saying clinically integrated LLMs. I'm going to stop here and basically give a warning for all you really smart founders out there. You are going to see, because I snuck ahead and looked at this team, these are some really smart people. I think they're geniuses because the way that they're approaching it and breaking it down, I can see the gears turning, all the brain power, the total IQ involved in this. Blows my mind. I think it's fantastic. But in your mind, as the founder, if you're smart, it makes total sense because you're smart, you're the genius, and you got all the neural pathways just totally set up for you to immediately go, I know what I'm talking about. As an investor, my head hurts. If I'm looking at this for the first time, the more I have to struggle and say, I don't understand what that means, you're creating cognitive friction. Let's use some therapy terms. You're creating cognitive friction for me, and that makes me reduce the energy, my engagement, and I start to lose interest in this deck because you're making me do so much work. That's the cardinal rule in pitch decks. Don't make the investor do more work than they have have to, especially if it hurts their brain. And this one is hurting my brain. I can't say it over and over again. It's hurting my brain, but something in the back of my brain is tickling me saying, there's some genius going on here, but don't hurt my brain. If you're a smart founder like that and you have deep science technology, go to ChatGPT, use the LLM that we're talking about, and say, help me explain this model to a junior high student as if I showed up at their career day and I'm explaining what I do in the most simplest, basic terms so that that junior high student can turn around and share with their parents what they learned at school with excitement, and the parents also get it. And that's what you're going for. That's my pro tip. Use AI to help you with this. This deck could have been fixed very easily if you just ran it through AI. And that's what I do all the time. I run a credibly technical and difficult deck through AI, and I will say, what exactly is this product? Is it a pill? Is it a medicine? And then ChatGPT will explain to me whatever AI that I'm starting to use. A lot of people use Google LLM for this to understand all the industry and then do the due diligence. Do that up front. Help the investor, help you, and invest in you by doing the work up front for them. You've been warned. There are no excuses with all the tools available out there today. Yet, this deck raised $8 million. Let's keep going. Next, product clinical approach, the components of the best therapy experience ever. Hyperbolic H word again. This is like literally F-bombing a pitch deck. The H word, you're H-bombing a pitch deck, all right? There was the H-bomb, hydrogen bomb. Well, that's just as bad as F-bombs here. And I've got this. We have built a strong clinical team and technological stack to enable the best therapy experience that had ever been brought to market and have more exciting developments on the near horizon. Again, more H words happening right here. This slide is totally redundant, does not need to happen, and it's driving me crazy. I'm just going to be upfront. As someone who's had to deploy hundreds of millions of dollars and who's looked at dozens of pitch decks, sometimes a day, this is driving me bananas. One more hyperbolic statement, the best therapy experience ever. Best-in-class therapists. Okay, don't believe you. We hire incredible therapists. This is not solving the problem, by the way. Hiring therapists is very, very difficult. The best in class, plus AI augmentation. Now, I do believe this. AI is always available, enabling 24/7 live care that goes well beyond what clinicians can normally provide. And I would say hiring the best therapist to train the AI, that's going to be a different type of argument. But hiring the best therapist, a lot of people are trying to do that, so I don't believe you. Then we got some screenshots with more H-bombs here. The current therapy problem. Now we're going all the way back to the problem, but let me explore this. Average therapists use supportive care. These therapists act like a friend. All right, now we're getting into some novel insight here, and you could have told me this in the problem statement right up front. The reason these outcomes are going wrong is because they use supportive care models. This approach lacks clear understanding. Most patients don't come back to a second session. Give me the stats. Say of the hundreds of millions of people that go to therapy, let's say 80 million don't go back for the second session. Most patients are unable to make progress between sessions. Give me the stats. Tell me that there's 33 million therapy patients who say that we don't make any progress between sessions. That's their major complaint. But at least we're getting into these insights here, and you should have opened up with this if that's the main basis of your thesis. Magical first week of therapy. All right, if you're going to say this, just say, we've tested it, and our users say, my first week of therapy was magical. We see you and are there with you. Pause. You know those Deadpool movies where Deadpool like breaks the action, starts talking to you? This is what happens here. When you, the founder, talk to the investor like they're the customer, or you stop and you say, hey, there are customers watching. Let me stop this important conversation where I'm pitching my startup and talk to the customer. And it's kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so if you have statements like, now you can save 15% or more on your car insurance, what if the investor doesn't have that problem? In fact, a lot of reasons this won't work is because a lot of investors will say, I don't have mental health problems. I don't need the therapy, but I see everybody else that has that. So you could have just made the statement, we see the patient and the patient feels like we care for the patient. That's all you had to do. And then give me some stats to show that this is actually happening. Now, it's pre-seed, I understand, but you could have done some testing. You could have got some testimonials, because another pro tip that I've seen people use in pre-seed decks is they say, don't take our word for it. Here are all the numbers of the dozens of people who are ready to tell you that they agree, they've bought in, they've signed the LOI, they think our startup idea is fantastic. They've been part of the use case, the beta test, the prototype, whatever you want to call it, and give us some social proof. That's all we have to do to support these types of statements. Now we're getting into more H-bombing. Never before possible therapy experience. All right. Now, we don't need to do that. Just tell us what the new therapy experience is, where patients feel understood, build trust, and prepare for change. All right, so you could have just said that. Enabled by AI, Jiminy therapists understand the patient's full complexity. How do you know this? With the help of Sage. What is Sage? I don't understand what Sage is. The therapist helps the patient every day to enable robust behavioral change. You're making statements that are just very standard, taken for granted. This is very generic, the word. Okay, it's the G word here, very generic, and that's just as bad as H-bombing your pitch deck. I'm going to just keep moving on here before I completely lose my mind and say things inappropriately. But remember, this pitch deck did raise $8 million. I'm going to keep saying that, and you're going to see the big climax. Deeper understanding enables hope and confidence. Okay, I get it. Sage learns key information about clients. Okay, you're not telling me anything different than others are promising. Clients feel seen and understood. How? Why? And we've got at least some testimonials here. Great first session. Sophia, oh, this is an actual demo of how it works. So maybe this is a how it works slide. Specifically trained expert therapists leverage client understanding to set clear goals. You have not said anything different. This is not an innovation thing. This is not something completely new. I know many models where a therapist uses AI or some type of operating system to glean insights and help their patients a little better. I'm not saying every therapist does it, but it's a mad race to solve this problem. That's why I know it's a worthy problem, and I know it could be a unicorn, got unicorn potential, which is another thing. I haven't seen the market slide for this yet. I don't think there is one. Big mistake. We don't want to leave that slide out. Continuous support drives clinical progress with its deeper understanding. Again, redundant. We've got this over and over again. Unparalleled client engagement. Now, if you're making this statement, I want to see some backup here. Engagement. Most clients engage 3 times per week. Engagement remains strong over many months. Now we're getting somewhere. If you're telling me that this is the traction and we figured out how to do it, explain this to me. Show me what's going on. You got this chart, but I don't understand it. But this statement, I think, is one of the breadcrumbs. Remember, everyone, genius leaves clues. And this is a breadcrumb clue on why I think this pitch deck raised $8 million. AI usage, high completion of Sage, like client initial activity, 10 minutes initial average spend. Okay, compared to what? But at least there's data. I like the fact that we're showing, not telling, we're showing this data. Explain to me a little better. Now we're getting somewhere. And this is the important thing. Give people the social proof, give people the metrics and the data, and give it to them hardcore, the investors, so they understand that you can back up your promises. Here is the climax, everyone. World-class executive team with deep clinical operation technology expertise. Tell me how many years, different things, but this is actually a very good headline statement. Now look, everyone, MIT, and look at this. Co-founder, you might not be able to read this, co-founder of Immune AI, I think that's how you say it, $1.2 billion valuation, right? Look, founding VP of product at Ribbon Health. These are major names. We got Harvard right here. We got C-level of these massive companies. Take a look at all these startup experiences and the domain expertise that we've got going on. Look at these logos. Look at what's going on here. We got Stanford, we got Penn State, all this team there. I'm going to say that based on this alone, plus the results that they showed, is what raised this pitch deck $8 million, because this is a unicorn team. Let me warn you, only 1% of startups have this type of powerhouse team. This is literally like a dream team, like the dream team for basketball that you send to the Olympics with all like the best superstars, the all-stars, all in one spot. It makes for a great basketball. It makes for a great startup. But if you are out there and you think, well, my degrees and what I've done, I've been the CEO of a startup in the past and nobody knows what that startup is. You don't have a $1 billion valuation. You're not a CEO, a previous founder of a unicorn in any shape or form. Your experience is not going to cut the mustard like this team. What will happen is they'll say, okay, great. We appreciate that you got this background. Don't really care if you went to school and you got a degree here and there. We want to know, do you have the expertise on your team, the basics, but can you prove it with your traction? And this team, to their credit, had traction. So the really most important slide there, the traction of the therapy outcomes that they've been doing, they've been testing, and how they're using a unique and novel methodology, Insight, to prove it. So they've got at least some initial testing and a powerhouse team. If you have less of a team that's recognized with that domain expertise, then you're going to need way more traction, at least social proof. This startup hasn't raised any money. They're pre-revenue. But you don't really need to with this type of team. Others are willing to take a bet on it. Why? Because the investor thinks to themselves, this team is so stacked, just like the dream team. They might lose the first round of the qualifying at the Olympics, but they'll figure it out. They got the best coaches. They got the best players who've been in this situation before. They'll pivot. They'll make adjustments if needed. That's what this team will do. So this team will adjust and make sure that they protect the investors' money by iterating and solving problems. And it's so important that they've had experience doing this before. And that's why this pitch deck is representing a unicorn with a huge market. I don't need to see the market slide to know how huge this market is, but you left that out because a lot of investors don't know how big this market is. This is a unique insight that you want to give them along with your special sauce. And that's what this pitch deck has, the special sauce as well as a great team. Just to back up my assertion, this startup has special sauce. Check out the additional science. I actually appreciated that they added this. Even though I'm not going to understand it, at least it was included there. It's better need and not have than to have and not need. And I'm going to take for granted, all right, response remission rates. And then we've got the building clinically integrated LMs is very nuanced. I appreciate that there's complexity going on here. DTX West Safety and Clinical Pitfalls of Mental Health Bots, great. They understand the marketplace. You could put that in a competitive slide. Jiminy Head Advisor on goal-specific approach, and it's showing them more domain expertise. It's got charts. It looks fancy, and I'm guessing that they did live presentations and they showed, and they had the team present that, and the investors were blown away by how thoughtful and intelligent they are. Efficacy of continuous care for various populations. I dig it. Talks about text-based psychotherapy interventions are delivered, evidence-based manner. A lot of science there. I'm like, yeah, this team is really smart. I'm thinking you're drinking water from a fire hose like I am, but this team is smart. That's the takeaway here. And potential for continuous practice, more data. It's presenting very well. You can tell everyone's from Harvard, Stanford, MIT. Jiminy Health, this is what you got. I think this is a unicorn waiting to happen. I'm going to be worried when they want to raise the next round, but I believe they've got enough funding. They've got enough smart people to advise them how to do their pitch deck next. Where do I rank this pitch deck? Let me tell you, it's a unicorn pitch deck, but I'm going to rank it as a pitch deck in the D tier. This is a D-tier deck because, quite frankly, it's nonsensical, hyperbolic. It's H-bombed all over the place. As a deck, you could have made this deck so much easier for the investor to get excited. This is D-tier for the deck alone in terms of how good the deck is. But I'm telling you right now, I personally think that this is an A-tier startup. This is literally a unicorn waiting to happen right here. The only reason it's not an S-tier startup is because I'm missing some information, but I bet you that we could easily upgrade this to S tier if I spent some time talking to these founders and asked them some critical questions. It's socialization stage, which I'm sure the investors did. And that's how they raised $8 million, everyone. I want to give a shout out to Yuri Rebrick. He put this whole list on LinkedIn. He compiled it all, did the hard work. I'm just doing the commentary. If you want to see the other pitch decks that are part of this series, go check out the link in the description. And let's give Yuri some love. He's doing a great job with his startup out there. Just want to make sure that I give credit. If you're out there and you want your own pitch deck critiqued and reviewed, leave a comment. Tell me what you're building. Very important. I will respond and I'll give you instructions. You're going to have to jump through a few hoops. Why do I do this? Because I don't want every founder out there sending me the same pitch deck, so I do this over and over again. I want every pitch deck to be a little bit of a different lesson, maybe a different industry. That's the reason I want to expand this series and make sure that outside of the member pitch deck reviews that we do over on startups.com, that you're all getting this best experience. And that's why I do them for free. I want everybody to have access to them. Let's learn together. Thanks for hanging out in this video. We're going to continue this series. Watch some of the other videos that I put on the screen. You can take a look at the other video, the previous one that made the B tier. It was a pretty good one, and these are all raising millions of dollars. Once again, I appreciate your time. Let me know what you're thinking. I'll see you in the next video.